back, viewer. This is Chungu cha Jamii. Today we are talking about, is marriage a scam? Send in your question, interact with us across all our social media networks. That's GBS TV Africa. Our SMS line is 21144. Before we went on a break, we had touched on how we're supposed to look and base our foundation in marriage. So before we went on a break, I was asking on how are we supposed to handle I've been divorced, I want to get married again. I might find that the person I'm getting married to was never in a marriage. But me, I have the fears of whatever I went through in the first marriage, or the other way around. Or maybe both of us have been divorced. We have our challenges, our differences, but now we are coming on board to start afresh. How do we navigate through that? And also with the in-laws that we're saying we ought to listen to, but again, we are not ought to listen to at the same time. You should choose and pick. This I'm going to work with, this I'm not going to work with. Based on we want and being intentional. The bottom line is being intentional and practical about where we are going. So how do we navigate through that? Maybe starting from the female perspective.
Well, talking about in-laws first, I find, and in marriages, I find that where actually the couple already have their way and their plan, the woman is where she has the cover of her husband, she's in a much better position to navigate through the demands of the in-law. But then again, it can be very difficult to completely negate everything they are saying, and especially parents, or in situations where there might be some form of support from her side, from the family. So in such a situation, then she will have to wisely navigate her relationship with the parents or with the in-law that is involved, and be able to iron out the matter. But where there may be a matter that is of benefit to them, then that can always be adopted, especially where it's not a demand on them to do what they are being told. So whatever comes from the family should not be instructional, like you must do this. Even if it's a good thing, it should be like a suggestion, and then it's for them to either pick it up or not, but be under no duress at all to take on what the family is saying. And I think as a woman, I should be, if it's my in-laws, I will have to cultivate a relationship, especially with my mother, my father-in-law, cultivate a relationship with them in such a way that we can actually sit down and talk and discuss things and be able to come up with a solution. And that would work. And I believe in such a situation, it can only enrich the marriage. After all, they know the man from his early days. So oftentimes, they'll help you with information that you may require at that time. Yeah, oftentimes they'll help you with the information that you require. That was my experience also with my parents-in-law. Oftentimes they came up with information that helped me, but I was also respectful to them. And, as they required, the help they required, what I could give, that I did. And that was good. But then for me also, I had a benefit in that they did not quite bring in everything and force us to follow any particular pattern. So what I got was mainly beneficial for us. Yeah.
Maybe to touch on the cases that I had asked of divorced people from different marriages. Now, right now, with our current generation and the society that we are in today, marriages are not lasting for more than 5 years. So we get into it. We're first getting into marriage with different ideology and expectations. If you don't meet my expectations, then well and good. Goodbye to this marriage. Let's look forward to something else. So when we're getting into marriage from both of us are divorced, or one is divorced, the other one is not divorced, what are we supposed to look at so that we are able to navigate this marriage to be long-term, better, and to serve it better than our previous relationships? How do you look on that?
Well, thank you, Eunice, for that. I would also, first of all, want to say that marriage is something that lasts forever. And as much as we have talked about 5 years, there are some even last months, there are some that last forever. And there are different reasons why marriages fail in one way or the other. There are different factors. And we have also counseled different couples who have gone through different challenges. But I would also want to say that marriage challenges are there to be worked on. And for adventure, there is somebody who has been divorced, but we look at different cultures and also different beliefs. Like in Christianity, they say that marriage is forever. There is no divorce. There's no room for divorce. But for one reason or the other, if there is a divorce, then you should stay like that until death do you part. But now the law also, there are those who...
Allow me to interrupt.
Yes.
You've just
Yes.
said, if I'm divorced, I should stay like that for the... Wait, I've been married for 3 months, and then you're telling me I have to stay single for the rest of my life. So that's being unfair.
That is scripture, and if the scripture dictates your culture, then the Lord will give you the grace.
Okay, I get it.
Now, that is Christianity.
Okay.
And then, of course, the Lord will give you the grace to overcome all the challenges that come with the singlehood, especially when you've been married. And there's some other cultures that they say that you can remarry. Even the law says that once you have been divorced officially, you can be able to remarry again. Now, looking at those two perspectives, and then looking at this one was divorced, or this one, in one way or the other, he was in a previous marriage, whatever the situation, and then they want to get married again. Now, there are some two main things that needs to be looked into here. Number one is I am coming with no experience in this particular marriage. If we bring the previous experience, then it will be a disaster. Why? Because I am not the other person. You are not with the other person who you are not with today. So when you bring those experiences, then you say you're not performing, you are not as hot as the other one, then it becomes a challenge. So that is why we again said communication is very important. Sit down and have a conversation. Not talking to, but talking with. Have a conversation. Agree, this is what I may want this marriage to be like. Then we build towards that. Now, there is what we call the reality on the ground, and there is the ideal. So the reality says you have an experience. Then the reality says, I also have an experience. My experience and your experience is very different. But the ideal is, let us work towards a certain level of happiness, of joy in our marriage. So number one, don't bring the experiences that was there before. Work it out. And then the other thing I would also want to emphasize is communication, as we said again. Let us communicate. Let your spouse communicate with you. And the communication is not only when there is a problem, but let there be a continuous communication. If you're in your place of work, send an SMS, send a WhatsApp, call, and not for anything, just to ask, how was your day? How are you going on? That constant communication. Think about your spouse often. And then when you sit together, it will not be fireworks. They will be actually waiting for you to come in. And then when you make your marriage ideal, when you make it work, then it will be a model to other people. One of the reasons why most people don't want to get into marriage, it is because there is a lot of comparison. What we see in the social media, we only see the good part of it. We don't see the reality.
Allow me to interrupt you. When you're talking about communication and being intentional and idealistic and reasonable in whatever you're coming to put across, at what time are we supposed to have this dialogue of communication? Is it before marriage, during the dating time? Or is it after marriage? That is when I bring the culture shock of saying, oh, well, we've been dating. You didn't know I have children. Now we are married. I'm telling you, I have 3 children. And I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. You didn't tell me. At what time are we supposed to put communication? Maybe you can take us through that, madam.
Oh my, I think communication definitely should be from the very beginning. And as Pastor was talking, there's one thing he said when he talked about the divorces, and he said, work it out. He just said, work it out, and then continued with how the situation should be. But I got stuck on that work it out because I thought, here you are, you've been married, you're divorced, and then here you are getting into another relationship. That work it out is critical. Because you see, you need to know who you are then and who you are now to enter into this. Am I really ready? What am I bringing from there? Yes, I'll be told, leave it behind. So to you, you will think, now I know, I'll not be asking him why he has come late. I'll be making sure food is cooked on time. But that's not it. That's a very small part of everything. The real thing is within the person. Who am I? How am I? Am I wounded? Am I healed? Am I glossing over the pain within? Am I acting out? Because unless you deal with the person of who you are, then you are actually just acting out. Just like an actor will portray a certain character, but that's not who they are. They are just acting out. So you need to deal with who. So when he said work it out, I thought that is the key thing in marriages. Whether it's as a divorcee, you want to enter into another one, or whether it's a young girl, you're not married, you are going into marriage. You need to deal with the wounds of your childhood so that you do not repeat what happened then. He said, yes, you leave those things behind, you enter. But how do you leave them behind? There has to be a change within me, because otherwise I will carry them. I may leave the actions behind, but the me is still there. So in being deliberate in your mind, for you to enter into a conversation, into the, like we said, communication that's really meaningful, the me, the I, the self has to be healed from whatever it was, so that I know I am well and I'm operating from a healthy position. You see? And so I believe that communication should begin before, with yourself first, before. And you ensure it is well with you so that you can communicate as a wholesome person with the one you intend to marry. And if indeed you are whole, you are healed, you are well, then you would even be able to tell the right person for you.
Sure. As you add on that, maybe,
Yes.
now that Madam has mentioned about knowing the inner you, knowing the self, at what time would you say, oh, do you have a manual of knowing yourself? Because in most of the time, we don't know. It's until I'm pushed to the limit. That is when I trigger out to show who I am. Until you're pushed to that extent. So before I'm pushed, what can you say, or how do I tell that I'm healed from the wounds and the traumas? That I'm not going to bring whatever past experiences I had, that I have already identified myself and the issues, because it's true, it starts from me. How do I tell I have grown from this level to this level and I'll not repeat this in this?
Wow.
How do I tell? Maybe briefly, then we take a short break.
Amazing. And I would want to start it from a little bit far. And that's what you mentioned about working it out. And one of the areas of working it out is to go through a healing process. And that healing process is through time. Number one, time is a great healer.
Sure.
But then, even within that time, some people say that I was in a relationship and it is now 6 months. I'm ready to go into another relationship. Some other people say it's 1 year. I'm not yet ready. I even know people who have been separated or divorced and now they want to remarry again. Then they say, 5 years, I'm not yet ready. But now there are some people who can help you go through that process of healing. And those are counselors. Very well-meaning counselors who can be able to look at, just review where you have been, where you are right now, and what are your expectations in the next relationship, so that the percentage of losing it again is almost zero, if not negative.
With a yes or no, then we take a break. In Kenya or in our society where we are right now, are we embracing counseling session whereby I can say I'm traumatized and I need to see a counselor? Are we embracing it, or are we saying, oh, well, I can't go to someone else to advise me on what to do with my life?
To say two things here is that people are very much different. There are some people who believe that they don't need to see anyone to help them. And of course, when you look at the sociology part of it, a human being is not an island. He needs people. He needs a support system. Now, one of the reasons why there is a lot of mental health issues, it is because people have refused to acknowledge that they are sick, they are unwell. And that is why when you find that there is a particular pattern in your life whereby you have been behaving in a certain direction, then all of a sudden you change, and then you know that you need some help. There are different kinds of counselors, of course, and of course there are those who can be able to give you some counsel that you can, but the greatest thing is to have a support system around you.
On that note, let us take a quick commercial break. Viewers, I hope you can interact with us across all our social media networks. That's GBS TV Africa. Our SMS line is 21144. We'll be back shortly.